Good afternoon, and welcome to CCSI's Cloud Security Webinar. Cloud computing can be more secure than on-prem. I'm Alan Starost, and with me today is Joe Goldberg, our practice manager. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Alan.
Before we begin, let me tell you a little bit about CCSI. CCSI is an MSP and MSSP that has been on the cutting edge of technology for over 45 years. We've helped many firms transform the technology to meet their ever-growing needs. When you work with us, you're getting employees who are certified specialists. So whether you're looking to rebuild your data center, protect your digital assets, or more importantly, move to the cloud, CCSI could help. Our presenter today, Joe Goldberg, is a senior cloud program manager at CCSI. For more than 15 years, Joe has helped companies to design, build out, optimize their networks and data center infrastructures. As a result of his effort, these firms have experienced major gains in ROI through virtualization, WAN implementation, core network redesigns, and adoption of cloud services. Joe is ITIL certified. We've allowed some time today for Q&A, so please feel free to add your question to the right-hand panel on the side. We'll try to answer them during the presentation. If not, we will do it at Q&A sessions at the end. Today's topic is definitely of interest because a lot of people that I've speaking to are being asked to do more with less. And cloud work technology actually makes sense for a lot of their workflow. But however, there's always that fear that you want to protect your valuable data. But once you learn that cloud can be more secure than on-prem, it almost becomes a no-brainer. But instead of listening to me, why don't you listen to our practice manager, Joe? So I'll let you take it from here, Joe.
Thanks, Alan. So today's webinar, we're going to be talking about how cloud computing can actually be more secure than on-prem. But before we start, I just want to level set. We'll be talking about infrastructure as a service and platform as a service primarily. So on the infrastructure as a service side, the principles of cloud are it's on demand, you pay for only what you use, it's easy to scale up and scale down as needed, and you remove the undifferentiated heavy lifting, all the racking, stacking, all that sort of stuff. On the platform side, which is serverless, it gives you high availability, there's no idle capacity, so you're really truly paying for exactly what you're using. Flexible scaling, and there's no server to manage, whereas in infrastructure as a service, you still have the operating system to manage. In platform as a service, that becomes the cloud provider's problem. So before the cloud, you had companies building large data centers of physical servers. They would make large capital expenditures. Any new project required a new server to be purchased and a capital expense incurred. And no matter how good your IT team was, it was always a cost center. As they say, good job configuring servers this year was said by no CEO ever. The only time the IT department gets recognition is when things break. So moving to the cloud, one of the big risks or one of the big perceived risks is security. So I'm going to cover both the physical security and the cybersecurity pieces of it. On the physical security side, we can really cover that in one slide. If you look at your average office building where you have your average data center for a company, you probably have a security guard who looks something like this at 3 o'clock in the morning if you were to walk into the building. Whereas if you were to go to a Microsoft or AWS data center, you would have something that looks a little bit more formidable like this greeting you trying to get into the facility. On the cybersecurity side, the cloud operates on a shared responsibility model. Now, I've taken these from AWS, but Microsoft, Google, Oracle, they all adhere to the same shared responsibility model. So on the infrastructure as a service side, the customer is responsible for the customer's data, platform, applications, operating system, the client-side data, and AWS or the cloud provider is responsible for the compute, the actual physical storage, any databases, the networking, and the physical plant, HVAC, racks, cabling, all that stuff becomes their responsibility. If you decide to go with a serverless model on platform as a service, then more responsibility gets shifted to the cloud provider. Now the cloud provider is responsible for patching the operating system. They're responsible for the network configuration and a whole lot of other things that they kind of take over for you, which is kind of nice. So I was searching for the internet, searching through the internet for a couple of examples of large breaches in the cloud in the last several months. So I found 3 good examples. One was an online betting site. 3 online betting sites that are related to the same company got breached for 108 million records to an Elasticsearch cloud storage engine because basically there was no password on it. Facebook admitted in March 21st, 2019, that 600 million users' passwords were breached because they were stored in plain text. And in May 2019, more than 49 million Instagram influencers, celebrities, etc., had all of their information exposed when India-based social media marketing company that was partners with Instagram left the data unprotected on an AWS web services database, again, with no password. So what do all of these issues have in common? They all involved human error. Gartner said in a report on March 2019 that through the year 2022, at least 95% of cloud security failures will be the customer's fault. And it's up to CIOs and CISOs to combat this by implementing and enforcing policies on cloud ownership, responsibility, and risk acceptance. They should also be sure to follow a lifecycle approach to cloud governance and put in place central management and monitoring to handle the complexities of multi-cloud use.
So Joe, how does security on like the cloud side differ than someone on-prem? What do they have to look for? What do they have to think about?
On the cloud side, you don't really have to worry about the physical security piece of it. On the on-prem side, you do have to worry about the physical security piece. In the cloud, you still have similar challenges cybersecurity-wise as you do on-prem, but there are more tools available that the cloud providers give you so that you can help really shrink that attack surface and really keep everything kind of secured.
and they help you secure the buckets and everything else, correct?
Exactly. And a good example would be Capital One. Capital One had a failure that basically was a user access rights restriction. They had a user that had too much access, and they were able to use that to gain access to some Capital One storage and steal the data. So had they been doing things like a cloud security scan or had governance in place and automatic configuration, et cetera, then they probably could have avoided the situation. And it's actually come out now that the security team at Capital One did warn management months in advance that there were issues like this, and they wanted to spend some money to try to fix those issues. So what is there to assist you as you're working your way through the gamut of cloud security? There's a couple of organizations and frameworks out there that are really helpful. You have the CIS framework, which is probably the most common. It's the Center for Internet Security, and they have a framework to secure just about everything from AWS to Azure to VMware to Windows to Linux, etc. So following through on their frameworks really helps you ensure that you have the most secure posture as possible. It's also built on top of the NIST framework. So the NIST framework is the federal government standard, which is also very complete. And then, so if you take NIST and you put CIS on top of it, you're in a pretty secure area. AWS also has a well-architected framework. They have 5 pillars in the well-architected framework. And although it's AWS, this can be applied to any cloud provider. And they break it up into performance efficiency, operational excellence, reliability, security, and cost optimization. And I really suggest that people go to the AWS site and pull down the documents on each of these pillars, and it's pretty complete. And it as well is based off of the CIS and NIST frameworks, and kind of takes it yet another step in depth.
Well, one of the things that kind of gets me is cost optimization. Why would AWS want you to cost optimize when they can be gaining more money?
The cloud providers find that users who actually have significant visibility into their expenses and how they're spending money actually end up spending more money. Because when a customer feels that their cloud expenses are under control and they know how every dollar is being spent, they're more confident in spending money, knowing that they're getting value for the dollars. If you're just throwing stuff up there willy-nilly and your CFO comes to you every month with how come the bill keeps going up by $10,000 a month and you have no explanations, you're going to be a little bit hesitant to spend more money up there.
Gotcha.
So moving ahead, just to a couple of conclusions. Again, this is from that Gartner report that I was talking about earlier. In 2018, 60% of enterprises that implement appropriate cloud visibility and control tools will experience 1/3 fewer security failures. There is no single silver bullet that's going to prevent you from having a security failure, whether you're in the cloud or on-prem. So it's incumbent on you to use whatever tools are at your disposal, and not feel that a cloud provider is going to take care of it all for you, because again, they have a shared responsibility model. Through 2020, public cloud infrastructure as a service will suffer 60% fewer security incidences than those of traditional data centers. And a primary reason for that is because as people are moving to the cloud, they're automating their processes. So they come up with a secure process and then they automate it. So every time they build a new piece of infrastructure, it's automated and the security is built into the automation, which ensures, that there's a lot less opportunity for human failure.
Well, that sounds like a good opportunity for being increased efficiency as well as being able to do more for less.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's where the whole infrastructure as code world is coming from, where you can turn your entire infrastructure basically into an application. And you run the application and it builds out your infrastructure. So you have a known entity that you can now work with. And you can version, etc. So the tools that CCSI uses to help their customers, we do cloud security assessments. We go in and look at a customer's AWS or Azure or Google Cloud environment. We use the APIs to go in and generate a report based on the CIS framework and the NIST framework, and we can also generate reports on certain compliance requirements like HIPAA and PCI to show where you're in compliance and where you may have gaps. We do risk assessments where we'll come on site and talk to you about all your applications and processes and identify any risks, whether they be process related or cybersecurity related, so the management is aware that they're there and can work to overcome them. We do incident response, business continuity, and disaster recovery tabletops. So we'll sit down with a customer and all the the people involved in an incident response or disaster recovery declaration. We'll sit around a table and have a good conversation where we'll go through a scenario. Let's say a company gets hit with malware, and then they find that you have somebody trying to take data out the back end. And so how do you handle that incident? And then if you decide to fail over to your backup disaster recovery site because of damage done, how would that be accomplished as well? And they can kind of be mixed and matched in any sort of format. And certain compliance standards like high trust require that. Automation services, which is what I was talking about before, the infrastructure as code. We can help organizations turn their infrastructure and design into code that they can then deploy automatically. This ensures that they're always deploying a secure environment where they know where all the pieces are and exactly what they have. And we have cost and security governance tools where we can continually monitor infrastructure to ensure that its security is up to what the company is expecting and it's following all the rules that the company has in place, and also that your costs are under control, that you're operating within whatever budget you have, and to ensure that you're efficiently using the cloud resources you have, that you don't have a server that's twice as big as the job it's actually doing, so you can shrink that server and save money. And we can sit down and talk to people about one or any combination of all of these tools to help them both move to the cloud and stay secure and cost efficient once they are already in the cloud.
Joe, could you tell us about some of the tools that are out there specifically that someone could use?
For the cost and security governance, we internally primarily use Cloud Checker, and that would be what we would use with our customers. On the automation services side, we use a combination of Chef and Ansible and Terraform. Chef and Ansible being config management, and Terraform being more of a delivery type application. And the cloud security assessment, we use some homegrown tools here, so it's kind of our secret sauce. And the risk assessment and incident response are more of an in-person, low-tech, hey, we're going to have a conversation type engagement. Are there any questions from anybody on the call? Yes, as somebody just put up there, that it's true that with Capital One, a big part of the problem were unchanged credentials that were never set to expire. And it's also true that the cloud providers do limited things to protect you from your own stupidity. A good example where they've actually done a fairly decent job is, I'm sure most people remember that some of the Verizon outages, or not outages, breaches, and a couple of others that involved object storage or Amazon S3, where the buckets were left open to the public. Amazon has now made it extremely difficult to leave your bucket open to the public. It's a multi-step process that you actually have to go through to make your bucket public. And then they'll send you emails every week or so reminding you that your bucket is vulnerable and open to the public. But enforcing things like key rotation and credential rotation and multi-factor authentication, any cloud security assessment is going to kick those out as critical security issues, but the cloud providers don't force you to actually do any of those things. They'll recommend that you do it, but they're not going to force you to do it. And I guess it's debatable whether they should be forcing you or not. But best practice, and if you really don't want to get owned and have your data stolen from you, would be to change passwords frequently and rotate your keys frequently. And with a good strategy, that should not be an incredibly heavy lift.
So I would assume that what they're doing now for their on-prem security, they could probably continue doing for their cloud security as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and more, because there's a lot more tools that are available for you there. But the key is to have visibility. You have to understand what your resources are doing, who's actually accessing them, and understanding the complexities of how everything is held together and any holes that you may have in the kind of the onion of your security.
Gotcha. There's a lot of maintenance that needs to go on with all this stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Even though it's more efficient, there's still maintenance involved with it.
Yes.
So, all right.
Are there any other questions?
No. Well,
Go ahead.
Well, we covered a lot of things today. Definitely want to thank everyone who joined us. I mean, if you should have questions, I mean, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information will be out there. If you want things that you want, isn't afraid to ask at that particular time, you want to ask now, feel free to call us, reach out, email us, whatever it is. We'll be more than happy to answer it and actually be able to help you do whatever you need to do when it comes to cloud computing. We really appreciate your time, and I guess that concludes our webinar for today.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.